And welcome back to another episode of the Double Doink Podcast. My name is Brenden D. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated. You can also rate the podcast and review the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. It would also be greatly appreciated. We are 1 week into NFL free agency. It's pretty much creeping into draft time. So I thought I'd break down NFL free agency for the Eagles side of things, strictly Philadelphia Eagles today. And with my friend Thomas Petersen, fresh off vacation. Thomas, what's going on?
What's up? I mean, what a vacation! All this Eagles news popping left and right. I knew it was gonna be like a hectic time. But are you kidding me? Like,
We were talking before the episode. Everything happened at night. How it was, all the news is trickling in. Like there was, I think Rashad Penny happened 3:30 ish during the day. That was kind of it. The rest was all at night.
that was the only. Yeah, that was the only. I remember that one
Yeah.
because that would be in the evening, like late evening.
So where you
where
were, you were sleeping, and I was
asleep throughout the whole thing, and then I woke up and I had to catch up with everything.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
I kept thinking to myself, like, fuck, I want Thomas to be awake. I need his opinion on something. But you were on your vacation. I didn't want to bug you while you were on vacation. Why don't we start with your vacation? Tell the listeners where you went and how was it?
I was in Italy. I was in Canasei, something called Val di Fassa, where we usually go when we want to have a good time. Doesn't matter how the weather is. The food and drink is always great. Like you can always get a great bottle of wine and some awesome coffee around Italy. And the food is amazing. Austria and Norway and all these countries here probably have the better skiing options, but I mean the food is just nowhere near. So like even though the mountains don't really have the snow you want, it doesn't matter. You still have a great time. And this just happened to be the perfect time. I mean, it was sunny and warm enough to where there weren't any ice. So wherever you went, it was kind of like you always had good grip on the snowboard. I went snowboard vacation, by the way. So that was fantastic.
Any injuries? Did you stay upright?
No injuries. What are injuries?
Well, that's what I think of snowboard. Like I feel like I'd be coming home with
no. I went to the snow park a couple times, and I'm not great at it, but I usually I throw myself into the abyss. And I've been playing football long enough and got my ass cut blocked so many times that I can do a fall. Like I know how to fall. So like whenever I crash, I always crash with style. I'll usually get up or I'll roll. So I never gets too bad.
Well, super jealous of you on vacation. You picked a good week to do it. It was a very stressful week. I'm exhausted. Okay, I am ready for NFL free agency to be. I'm ready for the transition from free agency to draft. I've actually started watching some wide receivers today. I'm starting my draft prep. Always got to start with the wideouts. So I'm just obsessed with the draft wide receivers. It's just how I'm built. Especially being an Eagles fan for that stretch where every single year you were looking for wide receivers. So
I can't wait to get into the draft with you as well, man. But you got to say that the free agency period here has been above average crazy.
Yeah, it's been too much, especially covering the Eagles specifically. Like if you're just an Eagles fan, it's been a lot. And you know what? I think kind of the overall kind of I guess mindset for me for the last weekend, what this episode's going to be about is I think they did a good job of dodging bullets. I think they did a good job of just keeping guys that they wanted to. Overall opinion on the Eagles free agency so far is that Howie's done a solid job. It hasn't been super exciting, of course. Like you lost Javon Hargrave, you lost Gardner-Johnson yesterday, so there has been some losses. But I think overall they did a good job of managing what was ahead of them.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, with every single player, it's just been kind of weird, right? I think the only one where you can really kind of pencil it in, I guess, would have been Jason Kelce. I think both you and I we really thought he was gonna be back, and he was. The signs pointed in that direction. You couldn't see him finishing his career at this point. Would just be a weird time. Mm-hmm. And James Bradbury, I think the both of us thought that.
That one definitely.
So, but other than that, I mean, the whole CJ process has been mind-boggling. The Darius Slay thing, we knew there was going to be some kind of work with it, but I mean, to this extent, I don't know, man.
Okay, so let's talk CJ Gardner-Johnson because I got a lot of this. So last night, I can't remember exactly what time was it. So I was actually working the night shift to score last night, so I got to do it. It was 9:35 p.m., around 9:30 when Adam Schefter dropped the tweet. That it's funny because once I saw the notification come up, Adam Schefter put former Eagle at the start. So that's what I didn't see which team he was going to. I saw it was former Eagle. So I knew he was going somewhere once I saw that Twitter notification come up. But CJ Gardner-Johnson ended up signing a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Detroit Lions. So Tom Pelissero is reporting that $6.5 million of that is fully guaranteed. And then after that, Jeff McLean had a report. I'm going to pull it up here. Jeff McLean tweeted, this one kind of went viral, and I trust Jeff McLean's sources on this. He said, why CJ Gardner-Johnson is no longer in Philly. The Eagles made a multi-year offer early in free agency. He was looking for more. They eventually moved on to James Bradbury, extended Darius Slay. CJ Gardner-Johnson and his agent overvalued, not realizing the market and the league, how the league viewed him was a risk, and he settled on a prove-it deal. After that tweet, about a couple minutes after that, CJ Gardner-Johnson quote tweeted that Jeff McLean tweet with a cap, and then with the emoji beside it. That tweet ended up being deleted. He had it live for about 7 minutes, and he deleted it. And then after that, CJ Gardner-Johnson's agency tweeted, and this is quote for quote, perception versus reality, ... 1 year real versus 3 year fake, ... which sounds better to you? Number 1 year deal equals $8 million. Deal number 2, 3-year deal equals $24 million max with $17 million in year 3. Which one you taking? Mic drop, microphone emoji with drop after. I have been involved in the NFL, covering it full time for the first time this year, but have loved this sport and loved this game.
You've covered it full time for many years. You've just been full time paid.
Yeah, full time pay this year. I have seen a lot of nonsense on Twitter in my days and a lot of like stupid shit. I'm just gonna say it. In my time loving this game, that tweet last night might have been the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen on NFL Twitter. Taking my Eagles hat off here, okay? This strictly from an NFL fan standpoint. Why the fuck are you tweeting out negotiations with your client? What are you doing here? It completely backfired on you. You looked like a complete moron. I swear to God, Thomas, if you came up to me in grade 3 math class and asked me which deal was better without even knowing what NFL football was, I'd probably say take the long-term deal without even knowing what NFL is. Of course, $24 million is more than $8 million. And another thing is, too, NFL careers last a total of 3 years on average here. Okay, there's no guarantee that you'll get money the next year. CJ Gardner-Johnson just had a ruptured kidney. He just had was it kidney or spleen? Yeah,
lacerated kidney.
Your client just had major surgery like a couple months before, and you're convincing him.
He didn't have surgery. Just to clear that up, he didn't have surgery.
He didn't have surgery. Okay,
no, conservative treatment. But go ahead.
Whatever. He just had major injury, and you're helping your client take a 1-year prove-it deal after he just tied the league lead in interceptions. You can't help your client get a long-term deal after tying the league lead in interceptions, only playing 12 games. It is. Again, this is just taking my Eagles cap off here and looking at it from like an NFL brand perspective. That tweet and that agency nonsense was beyond crazy, and I've never seen anything like this before.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's from on professional Twitter, just to clear that up, because there's a lot of nonsense on Twitter, but usually it's fan interactions or reporters or something like that. This is a professional agency that is negotiating the livelihood for these players.
Hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts. They did the Jamal Adams contract. They just did Donovan Wilson contract. This is a legit sports agency tweeting out this crap.
Yeah, there's two things you hear from agents. No, there are two rules to agents. Either they let reporters know what the contract value is up front because they're proud of their deal and they want to get it out there. That's why sometimes you'll see a report saying this player signed this many years for this amount. That's because the agents want the amount out there. That is the agents providing the reporters what the contract details are. The team doesn't do that. They never do that. They keep that as quiet for as long as possible, only for when they have to release it to the NFL to the transaction wire. So when it doesn't come out, Rashard Penny, we didn't know what he was getting paid until a week after he signed. Why? Because they didn't want it out there. It was basically a minimum contract, $600,000 guaranteed for Rashard Penny. His agency isn't they're not over the moon about that contract. That 1-year prove-it deals are not something where you go, look what we just did.
Yeah. Like
And
they're flexing it. They're
the
literally
worst
flexing their
the
muscles
worst
about it.
thing about it, is because now you have two of the most secure sources from Philadelphia Eagles reporting. Jeff McClain, like you said, and John Clark, both coming out here saying the Eagles had a multi-year deal for significantly more than what is being reported out there, the agency, before James Bradbury was signed. Eagles, everybody had it. Everybody reported it. Eagles made a strong push to sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and when he declined, they specifically say that he declined that offer. They go to James Bradbury.
Yeah, because the Eagles have a budget for how much money they can allocate.
Exactly. And so when you see the contract right here, 2.5 million, then 17 million. I think wasn't it something like that?
So here's
Three
the
and a half, and then 17. So it
one.
would have been 24 in total. So
Yeah,
3.5, like each of the first 2 years, and then 17 million at the end. Why does that contract structure look like that? And why does this agent call it a fake deal? That's how you do it. If you don't have any more money left, you backload a contract. That doesn't say anything about what the guaranteed money looked like. It doesn't say what is fully guaranteed. Eagles could be in the position where they cut Chauncey after the first year, but he'll still be fully guaranteed a lot of that deal, even though it's in the third year. That doesn't say anything about what he's actually getting paid. What it does say is that we're not going to cut you in the first year, we're not going to cut you in the second year, and we're definitely not going to cut you in the third year, because that's when the most of the full, like if it was fully guaranteed, and I imagine it is that's when the cap hit hits. So this 3-year deal with the Eagles would have given him a chance to play alongside James Bradbury and Darius Slay, who are both signed through 2025. But the cap hit would just hit at the very end of it. Then he'll be 27 years old. He'll be in a perfect situation to have a massive payday when he gets 27. And his agency said, no, go to Detroit on a 1-year deal, $6.5 million, up to 8. I get that. But I get that the Lions are in ascend and whatever the hell. We're talking about a team that didn't make the playoffs and a Super Bowl team that are just now starting, like they want to pay their franchise quarterback. So if you have any chance of getting a deal, 3 years, $8 million, that's a lot for safeties right now, apparently. And we don't know what's guaranteed in that. And I guarantee you that the agency didn't put the guaranteed money out there because it'll make them look bad.
Exactly.
I think mind-boggling.
It's again one of the most the craziest thing I've ever seen tweeted out before. Like top 5. I'm still floored by it, this whole process. I actually think they're fucking lying on the tweet as well.
I think they are.
Probably gave more money. And that kind of can be a prove it deal. If you think your client is a good football player, in year 3, he can get that money that was at the backloaded at the end of the contract, and then he can cash in again. Like this is the whole 1 year. He just tied the league leading interceptions. Like he should have got a long-term deal, and there was one there for you, and you helped your client not take it. It is
so that's one thing. The theme of this free agency podcast is just think for yourself for a while. So what I just said, free agent signings, when a reporter says what the amount they're signed for is because the agents tell them. Nobody in the beginning here said anything about, oh, look at this massive deal for CJ. The agency came out and said that because nobody wanted to go out there and say, wow, look at the scoop they did. They had to go out there themselves and save face because they fucked up big time on CJ.
Yeah, they should have kept that one in the drafts. Like there was no need to tweet it out. Another thing is too, have you taken a look at the safety market next year in free agency?
No.
Buda Baker, Micah Hyde, Jordan Whitehead, Chuck Clark, J-Ron Curse, Eric Murray, Malik Hooker, Darnell Savage, Mike Edwards, Tayshaun Gibson, Jeremy Reeves, Ryan Neal, Will Harris, Xavier McKinney, Kyle Duggar, Brandon Wilson, Grant Delpit, Antoine Winfield Jr. It's not a year you want to go hit free agency.
It's still deep this year. Like, Adrian Amos is going to get signed to a criminally low contract.
God, okay. I wanted to get my rant out there because I was flabbergasted by that whole process.
Yeah.
That was one side of the argument. Let's transition to the loss of CJ Gardner-Johnson. I'm not going to sit here and act like this isn't a big loss or a loss that could sting. CJ Gardner-Johnson was a good player for the Eagles last year.
Sure.
Like, tied for first interceptions with 6. He brought like physicality to the defense. He was, in my opinion, a perfect addition, and I would have liked to keep him long term. And it kind of sucks to see him walk out the door. So I don't really like. I see a lot of fans kind of turning and saying, "Oh, we didn't want him anyways." No, like I wanted CJ Gardner-Johnson.
No, that's bullshit. He was the top of everybody's priority list.
I think you can separate the nonsense outside of the noise and then from the player. So This is
The
this
whole
is a
thing was
roster.
weird. Everybody wanted CJ back. He was a perfect fit for the team. It seemed like. I mean, the Eagles. Well, I mean, there's all this kind of thing going out here. That, oh, that's both the Saints and the Eagles now didn't want his character around for multi years, and he had to sign a 1 year deal because no team wanted to bank on him. That's a product of his agency. Eagles tried to get him in here for multiple years. They believed in him to do that. So that says everything about it. He's done nothing but be like, he was a terrific player. He has versatility. He's a physical player. He's still young. The projection is only going upwards. Would have been a great guy to have around. Definitely.
I agree. So the Eagles have to replace this loss, and they now the starting safeties are Reed Blankenship and Kayvon Wallace. So this is a hole on the roster, and we're kind of back to where we are every single year with the Eagles with safeties. It feels like when he's walked out the door, and even before that. So look, I'm not saying like if there is a place to have holes on the defense, safety is the position to do it. So like up the like safety linebacker, I guess. The Eagles defensive front, and they have is awesome, and they have two star corner. I guess you could put. I'll say star. Fuck it.
Yeah,
They have
sure.
2 star corners in James Bradbury and Darius Slay. So
the best duo last year. I mean, they've been the best.
So yeah. I think this is a place where they can be patient now. I don't think they need to rush on anything. There's a few names out there. You tweeted out some, I did too. Just the free agents. Josh Johnson's a guy that I actually like. He's only 27 years old. He won't cost against the comp pick formula since he was released by the Cleveland Browns as well. I'm sure Howie has his mind on that. So that's a name to watch. Adrian Amos, like you said as well. He played under Sean Desai in Chicago, right? Yeah, he played in Chicago there, I believe, before going to Green Bay.
Yeah, he went to Green Bay in 19.
Yeah, Taylor Rapp is also a guy that I've kind of looked at this morning. He's only 25 years old. He started, I think, every game for the Rams last year. I think Howie's going to like him. There's some names out there in free agency. I think they can be patient. They don't have to rush this. Take your time dissecting these guys and kind of let the market kind of dictate where you want to go. There's also draft. There's also in the draft they can fill this hole, but I wouldn't go into the draft with Reed Blankenship and Kayvon Wallace at safety. They need a backup plan. So I think they're going to sign someone or bring in someone. There's also Kevin Byard from the Tennessee Titans, who is in a kind of a contract right now. Yeah, so they want him to take a pay cut. He said no. So something's got to give there. I wouldn't trade for him. His contract is pretty juicy. I would wait to see what the Tennessee Titans do. I haven't done too much research into his contract, but I think he's got like 13 mil cap hit. I don't know if we're talking.
It's around that area. I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, so he's kind of, I don't know if he's tradable, but he's definitely a guy that you would pounce on the open market if he does become available. He's a good player. Like, he's 29 years old. He's a little up there in age, but he's been one of the best safeties in the NFL over the last few years. I think he finished like top 10 in coverage according to PFF grades last year. He led the league in interceptions 1 year as well. He's a very, very good player.
So if he's cut by the Titans, they're going to have a debt money of 13.6 million. Okay. Of course, they could post June that, but they still have to pay his prorations if they do that. So he'll be available to sign elsewhere for that. Of course, if you trade like we saw with Brenden Cooks to the Cowboys, Texans are got like a part of the agreement to that trade is that they're going to pay some of his cap to take that contract. So his cap number this upcoming season is 19.6. Then 2024 is 17.8. Then we have 2025, it's 4.3, and then they have a void. 2025 and 2026 are void years as well. So you could, like, if the Eagles were going to trade for him, that would obviously be to secure that they have the rights to negotiate with him and then take him on over anybody in free agency there. They'll probably extend his contract so that 2025 and 2026 will be playable years. And then they would up that portion of the contract there, and then try to get the cap room down from 2024 and 2023. So definitely not out of the realm of possibility, but you're also getting a 30-year-old safety who's one of the best in the league. So a lot of risk that goes into it, but also a heck of a player.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, like again, it's a hole, and it's definitely something that the Eagles have to address, but not too worried. We saw this coming. Like, that's the thing with this Eagles free agency. A lot of this stuff was going to happen, and they made plans for it. So that's CJ Gardner-Johnson. You made a video about Darius Slay, his contract, and kind of what happened with that. Do you want to kind of break down your thoughts on the whole process?
Yeah. So, of course, we don't have the entire full thing stringed together in a report, just to make that clear to begin with. And I don't have direct sourcing of what like how that thing exactly broke down, but just putting the timeline together. So what happened is that Eagles wanted to restructure Darius Slay contract. That was what was initially reported. We all knew that they're going to have to either restructure it or they're going to have to extend him to save around 12 to 13 million in cap space this year. You're going to need it because you're going to pay Darius Slay. You had to keep some guys, and the cap room simply didn't allow it otherwise to happen. So what is then being reported is that Drew Rosenhaus wants to make, like, Darius Slay's 32 years old. He just came off a really good season. Every agent who has a 32-year-old cornerback and stares at an opportunity and getting more guaranteed money and have their guy getting paid more. That's his last payday. That's just how it is. Like, he's probably not going to be in the league anymore. And if he is, he's going to be a Patrick Petersen type of wandering around 1-year contracts. Joe Hayden also had a couple of 1-year deals before he finished his tenure, and basically that is what Darius Slay would be looking at if he wasn't going to be with the Eagles, those small 1-year contracts. So Drew Rosenhaus says, all right, we have an All-Pro cornerback here. Not All-Pro. He didn't make that. Probably should have.
Eventually, he wasn't All-Pro one time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Eventually, he's a Pro Bowl quarterback, one of the best in the league. Yeah. We have a chance right now to see what his value is outside of Philly. So Eagles grant Drew Rosenhaus permission to seek a trade. And when they do that, they basically say you can negotiate with other teams and seeing what the value is otherwise in the market and what you could get for him in a contract. Because if the Eagles were to trade him, they would obviously have to rework the contract, just so like we talked about with Kevin Byard if the Eagles were to trade for him. And so that's when the report comes out that the Eagles contacted the Cowboys about a trade for Darius to go there, or for Slay. He probably listens to the show. So.
He does listen to the show.
Yeah, he does. He does. So of course, Eagles have always been upfront about this through the reporting of the local guys here, the guys we mentioned before. They wanted to keep Darius Slay. There was no question about it. They didn't have any intentions of letting him go. Why would they? And because the contract isn't tradable, it would suck to cut him off of that contract because you're still being penalized.
It would have been a post June 1st cut. And
it'd have to be post June 1st, but even then,
you had access to that money until June 1st anyway, so it was kind of useless.
You would have access to the money post June 1st, and also if you're cutting a player post June 1st, you basically just you're postponing the payments. You're still paying the prorations of 2024 and 2025. That's what people don't like. Post June 1 doesn't mean you just save it. You just save it for this year, and you spread it out over the next couple of years. That's what post June 1 is. So that's not favorable either. So then it comes back that like if you're Drew Rosenhaus and you're talking to the Cowboys, there's not a deal in place. But then we get there was some reporting out there. It wasn't hard reporting. Like, it's not from some of the guys that we really know have everything stringed together, that the Eagles actually had a deal and the Ravens were being mentioned as one of them. But they wanted to rework his contract for him to be cheaper. And that's not what Drew Rosenhaus wanted. Mm-hmm. And so basically he didn't really have a market out there. And suddenly the Eagles decide to release him. Again, that would not make sense. That is not what the Eagles wanted to, except if Drew Rosenhaus said, we're not going to agree to this deal. We want to work out a contract with any other team. Basically saying, if you don't want him, just let him go. And Eagles show hands. I mean, they don't have the money to do that. They can't give you more guaranteed money.
A lot of showing their leverage on both sides.
Exactly. Basically, like measuring ball size here between Drew Rosenhaus and Harry Roseman. And so Harry Roseman says, fine, I'll let him go. That's what you want? Fine. They've been very honest from the beginning that they were only going to give contracts that were respectable to the market. If they couldn't pay their guys, they wouldn't give them like disrespectful contract offers. And they would want to keep as many of the guys as possible if they can. But right now they're staring at a franchise QB contract situation and they just can't. Like, you can't keep everybody. So they let him go. 12 hours later, like, everybody knew that they were letting go. It was to the point where we had post June 1, like you said, post June 1 intentions of letting him go. That doesn't happen if that's not happening. And so suddenly we get the extension that Darius Slay is signed through 2025, and he gets about $32 million guaranteed over those 3 years. Over those 3 years, that's important because before that he was looking at a $19 million cap hit this season. And now he's getting $32 million guaranteed over 3 years. I think it was 32 or 34.
It's actually $26 million
It's
cap hit.
26 in the 2 years that he is extended.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
And then you put on the guaranteed contract that he's entering now here in 2023, so it amounts to a total of 30 something.
Which we still don't have my hands on yet. I've been checking spot rocking over the cap basically every single day.
Exactly. And why do you think that we don't have all the contract details out there?
Because he's not managed by
because Drew Rosenhaus didn't put it out. He's not
managed by Universal Sports Management, baby. God's sakes.
Yeah, we only know the contract details into the very detail if it comes out.
One of the perfect tweets I saw was like Nicole Lynn and Drew Rosenhaus aren't doing this shit. Like with the CJ Gardner-Johnson, like I think Nicole Lynn is tweeting about Jalen Hurts' contract extension. Well, that was a great breakdown. That was a great video, by the way. If you don't follow or subscribe to Thomas on YouTube, make sure you do. Breaking the Birds YouTube channel. He broke down the whole process. It was really well done, and I think you nailed every part of it. Very crazy time for like that whole day. I worked, going back to kind of went for me. I was the 4 to midnight shift downtown at the office, so I got the whole day of the Darius Slay nonsense. Like, I guess nonsense is the right word. Nonsense. It was kind of nonsense on both sides, but it was
circus. It was up and down.
So
roller coaster.
Happy to see him back. I always said that the best case scenario for both sides was working out a long-term contract extension, which is what happened. Freed up cap space for this year, keeps Darius Slay locked up as an Eagle for the long term, which I believe they need. And it all kind of worked out after chaotic kind of 24 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we still don't know. We still don't know what the guarantees is going to look like for James Bradberry either. And basically, what this does is set up the Eagles perfectly in a situation where they can just see what happens in the draft. We're going to talk a lot more about the draft, but now if a Devon, like they've seen for a couple years now where Pat Surtain and J.C. Horn gets picked right before 10. When the Eagles actually have a chance to take one of these guys.
And I think if J.C. Horn or Pat Surtain were on the board, I don't know if Devonta Smith's an Eagle.
Exactly. And so now they're set up in a position where if that happens again and a Devon Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez are off the board at 10, they don't have to take a Joey Porter Jr., for example, or any other guy that they really think that they needed because they had to draft a starting cornerback, or at least a guy to get in there and compete with a Sec McPherson and who else is in that DB room at this point. But so they've set themselves up in a perfect situation in terms of the cornerbacks and moving forward, because they can draft a guy probably at 10, then have them either sit for a year or start in the slot or even like, we don't know what the flexibility is going to look like with James Bradberry, and Darius Slay for that matter. But I guarantee you there's an out.
Yep. I think the best way to look at this is the best case scenario for 2023 at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're looking to win next year, having Darius Slay and James Bradberry on the roster is the best way to go about it. Now, Darius Slay's 32, James Bradberry's 29. He's going to be 30 during the season. There is like this, universal way to look at NFL players after that 30 mark. They start to fall. That definitely can happen. That 30-year mark is definitely kind of a baseline, but it's not guaranteed. James Bradberry and Darius Slay both played really well last year, and I don't see them falling off a cliff next year. But of course, they have to prepare for the future in 2024, 2025. Like, they have to start infusing this roster with some youth and talent. And this cornerback, I started watching Christian Gonzalez. Have you watched Christian Gonzalez yet, Thomas? He might be my favorite player of the draft so far. So I think I'm on board for him wherever the Eagles pick, but I don't know if he's going to be there at 10. The conversation for a different day, but even after Christian Gonzalez, you have Devin Witherspoon, Joey Porter Jr., like you said. There's a lot of good cornerbacks in this draft. This is like one of the best cornerback drafts in a long time, even like in some depth in like the later rounds. So I'm assuming they're going to be active in that market. And they also are active in the free agent market. Let's talk Greedy Williams, Thomas. They signed Greedy Williams to a 1-year contract. This is a really cool move, in my opinion. I like this a lot. It kind of adds a little kind of butt kicking to Darius Slay and James Bradberry in training camp and whatnot. You got a guy right behind you. He's young, who's hungry, who wants to win a job. Yeah. He's only 25 years old. He was a second-round pick, so he had a high draft profile. I like this move a lot. This is a team that needs youth in this cornerback room. If he plays well, this is an opportunity for him to come back on maybe a longer-term deal after 2023. The one, I think we've talked about this, or I brought this up on this podcast, one of like the most underrated part of the Eagles 2022 season is they got 17 healthy starts from Darius Slay and James Bradbury. That doesn't happen very often, and I think the Eagles knew that. So bringing in depth behind those two was really important. I like the signing.
Yeah, and when Greedy Williams is like he was a high draft pick, he actually had he's had some decent moments here in the past few years. He missed a season, I think it was due to injury, and I mean this past season he's been targeted quite a bit. I mean he's played a lot of snaps, and like when I looked at the signing, I immediately thought potential safety. But I mean,
here's my read on it. Do we finally see maybe Avonte Maddox move into safety, which they've been talking about for 4 years
right.
now? Like Avonte Maddox has played safety before. He kind of fits the profile. He's very like he's a dog.
Either way, it adds a really good depth piece there. And because I mean, Greedy is like he's a long and super fast cornerback who is super like really physical. He has the traits that you want in a cornerback, and just hasn't been able to really put it all. Like it's kind of cliche when you say put it all together, but I mean he's got all the tools, and I'd love to see what happens when you put him in a room with Darius Slay and James Bradbury and the defensive philosophy you're going to play right there. And I think if there was a move that we've seen so far that kind of has a Sean Desai name on it, I think Greedy Williams could be a guy like that that Sean wants to have in here. Because of his ability to play up in the face of guys. Hopefully that is what we're going to see, because you have 3 guys that are really capable of doing that now. So an underrated move. I think it adds excellent depth to the DB room, and especially if we're going to look at some safety movements around here and there. And like you said, Avonte can play the safety if you don't really like if you have to at some point in the season due to injury. God forbid something happens to James Bradbury or Darius Slay, the more guys you have in there that are actually capable starters, like Zach McPherson, I don't think so.
I think you're going to move Zach McPherson into the slot now, potentially, like to kind of maybe
potentially, yeah. But I mean, Greedy Williams is just an excellent depth piece to have in the season.
Yeah. It pushes players down the depth chart. I think he's going to make the team. He might not make the team, who knows? But I think he's going to be on the roster
I think so too, definitely, yeah.
Because there's not a lot of guaranteed money on the deal, so they could cut him if he doesn't play well in training camp. But I think this is a guy that's going to be on the roster, and he'll have a role in 2023. Anything else on the defense? I'm trying to think. They brought back
Fletcher Cox is back.
Yeah, so let's talk about the dudes on the defensive line. Fletcher Cox, 1 year, $10 million. Do you have the guarantees on this? Have you been able to figure out the whole contract exactly?
So I know that they have, as always, they have put it out with a lot of void years. I know that his cap hit this year is about 5.5.
Holy shit!
The same with next year.
They have void years all the way to 2027 on this bad boy. Oh my god!
Yeah, there's a lot of dead cap around here, and I guarantee you that the 2025 $10 million cap hit is going to be moved.
Yeah. Well, they can move it down to 20. They have void years all the way to 2027 on this 1 year contract.
Right.
Tyler Rose is a fucking menace, man. This is the first time I'm looking at this contract. It's making me laugh. Tyler Rose is a funny guy. Okay. So Fletcher Cox, I think it's completely fine that they brought him back.
Yeah.
How the defensive tackle market went. This is not a lot of money for a defensive tackle, like with some of the money that they were getting. Like I said, like the Dalvin Tomlinson got $14 million a year, which is, I think, the worst contract so far signed in free agency. You had Sheldon Rankins got almost $10 million. Onyemata, the former Saints defensive lineman, defensive tackle, he got like $12 million, I think, per season. So Fletcher Cox is the best defensive tackle left on the market. Once Javon Hargrave did walk and they weren't able to bring him in, there was a massive hole at that position. You had Milton Williams and Jordan Davis, who I think are going to play huge roles this year, like 100% they are, but you needed some stability there, and they needed to bring a veteran presence in, and keeping Fletcher Cox, in my opinion, was the best veteran presence they could find. He was second out of all defensive tackles in sacks on the open market, only behind Javon Hargrave. Eagles had the 2 best interior pass rushers hit the open market. So I'm completely fine with it. I understand why fans are kind of getting upset because you are seeing his play dwindle a little bit, but when he started playing fewer snaps later on in the season, he looked better. He looked more fresh. So I think they need to keep a snap percentage at like that 60 to 68, 69% rate, and just don't have him being a full-time player, in my opinion, is kind of the best way to utilize him going forward. So I'm fine with it. Makes sense. And give the guy some respect. Fletcher Cox is an all-time Eagle, guys. Okay, like this is like a legend in Philadelphia. So I think he deserves more respect, and I'm happy with bringing him back. I'm gonna flex a little bit here. I was kind of calling that Fletcher Cox could come back.
Yeah, you definitely called that one of them was going to go back. That they weren't going to let both Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox go. And I guess it kind of makes sense in the way that, like we talked about, the defensive interior is super young now, and they're Milton Williams and Jordan Davis have to step up and play massive snaps now. But what if they don't? And it's always easier to have a guy that you know when you're taking that step up instead of convincing a free agent. Like, say you want to bring in Arden Key, he was kind of my guy in the free agent market. I would much rather have him on a 3-year, $21 million contract than I would have Fletcher Cox. Like, if you're strictly talking player to player. And I kind of thought it was like it had like Fletcher Cox time was over, but leave that for another conversation. Like it's much easier to take that step up when you know you have guys around you that you know and that you gel with, and you've been learning from these guys. You kind of continue that relationship as you're developing as a player. That is much more easy than bringing in an outside guy who weren't there for your first season, and then kind of say, all right, you're going to be stepping up, but also we have this guy here that we're paying a ton of money. Like it's Fletcher Cox is going to play a lot of significant snaps because that's what you do when you're paid $10 million. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's easier to say, it's easier to sit Fletcher Cox a little bit in the game and have Jordan Davis and Milton Williams play a lot of snaps. Because Fletcher he's been around here. He knows what's going on. He knows what the team structure is, what the future is. If you were to bring in another free agent, they want to play. Like they want to make money. That's what they're in it for. So if you're bringing in a guy like Arden Key and say, Arden, you're not going to take this many snaps because you want Jordan Davis to play more, even if Arden is playing better than Jordan Davis at that point, like have fun making that argument to a player. Like you really have to find a perfect match then personality wise from the guys you're bringing in. And it's just much more easier with a guy like Fletcher Cox.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm completely fine with it. I think it makes sense. He's got to play well. Like he's going to have to continue to produce here. Like you can't see
paying a ton of money.
Of him. He's going to have to have a big role next year. I think that's it on defense. Let's talk about some guys that have left the building. TJ Edwards signed with the Chicago Bears, 3-year, $18 million deal. Seems like he wanted to go there, and this was a place he's from that area. He grew up a Bears fan, so this is a guy that I didn't think was going to come back, and he left. So hats off to TJ, man. Good player. I love the story too. I like the undrafted free agent working his way up and getting a long-term contract. It's the American NFL football dream, baby. So hats off to TJ Edwards. Another big role that they're going to have to fill. And they got a guy waiting in the wings named Kobe Dune, who they drafted in the 3rd round last year. So they also have another whole linebacker as well. That's something we should probably talk about. Is there anyone out there that you think that's kind of catching your eye? I can think of one.
Of the linebackers?
Yeah.
I know there's one that's catching your eye.
One out there that's still a free agent.
Do you still think it's
Eagles still pay CJ Gardner-Johnson? They got some cap space.
I mean, they very clearly allocated a specific amount that they can pay at each position.
And they haven't paid a linebacker yet. I'm assuming they're going to sign a linebacker, a safety, and I still think a defensive lineman is coming. I don't know if I think
it's going to be after the draft.
I agree. I think it could be after the draft. I'd keep an eye on Leonard Floyd. I still think he kind of screams Howie guy, but we'll see. He might get a lot more money than anticipated, but I think a safety and linebacker signing is happening in the next 6 weeks. So, free agent. Let me pull up what NFL linebackers are still available, or CFL linebackers for that matter. If they want to dive into the CFL. Okay, linebacker. So here, who's still out there? Thomas Petersen. We got
hit me.
Dupree, Leonard Floyd. Those are outside linebackers. Inside linebackers. Zach Cunningham, Deion Jones, Bobby Wagner, Miles Jack, Anthony Walker Jr., Damian Wilson, Denzel Perriman, Corey Littleton, Kyle Van Noy, Neville Hewitt, Rashawn Evans. That's pretty much it. Quan Alexander, Gian Brown. So we're kind of getting to the bottom of the barrel there. But
yeah.
Any names catch your eye besides Bobby Wagner? Is anyone else out there that you like?
I think Zach Cunningham has always been like I've always been a big fan of him just because he's an awesome linebacker in between the tackles. Like he's a physical player. He's a little bit limited in terms of pass coverage, but I mean usually linebackers are. And it really depends on what Sean Desai wants to run for defensive scheme because like there could be a situation where he's only going to go with one Mike linebacker on the field, and in that case, you want that is going to be Nakobe Dean, and you want to sign a veteran type or at least you want to sign somebody not very expensive for depth purposes if Nakobe is to get hurt. But if the plan is to go with a more strict 4-2 or 5-2 front, or 3-4 as it's called, and you have a Mike and a Will linebacker on the field at the same time, then you're going to have to prioritize signing somebody, and then it would make sense to put a little bit more in it for a guy like Bobby Wagner. That actually would make sense in that spot because then you'd have two linebackers play basically full time. And so he's going to get a ton of snaps. You're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. And if he wants to come in on a 1-year deal that isn't going to break the bank for the Eagles, sure, he is. He's absolutely a candidate in there. But of the guys you mentioned there was two guys that call my name. I'll just put up the list here myself. Zach Cunningham, Miles Jack, also like he's a speedy linebacker. If you get the fewer linebackers you have on the field, you also want them to be versatile and can play a little bit faster, and sort of react to everything that's going on. We've been going through this in episodes before why that is important. Go listen to that if you want. But that Quan Alexander, a guy as well. We know he can play ball. He's only 28 years old. He's been playing at a high level throughout his career. Had some down years, and that is why you could probably get him at a pretty decent rate. So yeah, that's. And then there's a lot of meh guys out there that you could sign. Like actually, Rashawn Evans as well. If I'm not mistaken, he was with Titans, right?
Sean Evans was a Titan, I believe. Yes, I think so.
I liked him when he was with the Titans. What happened? He went to the Falcons. That's what happened.
Oh, okay. Actually, I think Rashawn Evans might have signed back. I could be wrong there. You know what? I think he did. I think Rashawn Evans inked back with Atlanta. Why is he still on Spot Rock's list?
Yeah, I don't know. I also know Anthony Walker. He visited with somebody. I don't know if he signed actually.
The linebacker market doesn't really intrigue me too much. Like I think if you don't hit on Bobby Wagner, I'm kind of fine with anyone. You can find there's so many guys there that could probably step in and start day one. You're not going to be enticed or happy with a lot of them, but I think they can figure that one out. So another one they can be patient with over the next.
Yeah, exactly. See what happens in the draft.
Yeah, Brandon Graham is back. Nothing. I don't know if we can. There's much to touch on there. Our boy's back, baby. We predicted that. There was no reason for him to leave. He was always going to come back. He took a little bit of a discount to return to. So hats off to him. Now longest tenured Eagle going right now. Were him and Kelsey? He was a year before Kelsey, right? 2 years before Kelsey.
I know he wants to play through 2025. Then he's played in 15 seasons. No, wait. 2024. Yeah, so he was drafted in 10 because that makes it 15 seasons, including that.
I actually remember exactly where I was when Brandon Graham was drafted. I was at my neighbor's house helping move stuff, watching the NFL draft on TV.
Were you happy?
I was. I liked the Brandon Graham. It was kind of crazy because everyone wanted Earl Thomas, but I wanted a defensive lineman. I still remember wanting a D lineman. I liked Graham. I was only 15 years old, so who knows how much knowledge I had. But I liked the pick. And then as the first couple of years went on, every Eagles fans were starting to panic, right? And then he obviously started to take off as the years went on. He was a great first-round draft pick, an absolute home run for this franchise.
And he was the most productive player last year. Like talking about a guy who really drew benefits of the rotation. Like you mentioned that with Fletcher Cox as well. You could see that the more he was fresh in there, the much higher production he had, and the less he was being pushed around by double teams. And Brandon Graham was factually the most productive pass rusher with his amount of snaps.
Breaking news. Roger Goodell and NFL owners are expected to finalize a multi-year contract extension for the commissioner at next week's owners meetings. Are you a Roger Goodell guy?
Ooh. No, just not. Whenever Roger Goodell comes up, we just boo.
I don't really have an opinion on Roger Goodell.
I don't have a single
I think he's
opinion on it.
slimy. I think anyone involved in at the top of the NFL chain is slimy. So it's not just him. Hopefully, we get the Dan Snyder selling the team. So I don't know if you see that empty spot. That's where my dad's Washington Commanders stuff is, because my dad's a diehard Commanders fan. He's like so happy and so ready for Dan Snyder to sell the team. He's like extra juiced up. So hopefully,
I can imagine.
Okay, is anything else? I don't think there's anything else on the defensive side. We're already 45 minutes in, so we'll squeeze through the offense pretty quickly. Offense, Marcus Mariota, I think is where we should start here. The Eagles have a new backup quarterback. Your thoughts?
Fits the system perfectly. How many times when in the amount of games that we saw with Jalen Hurts being injured, like how many times did you see Gardner-Minshew on zone read, where he obviously should have kept the ball because the D-line was just crashing in for the running back, or when he actually caught the ball and he was like, when you looked focused in on him, you just saw this guy running everything he could and he did move 2 yards in 30 seconds. And everybody was catching him. Like, he looked so slow. It was such a misfit. He is not a read offense type of quarterback. Marcus Mariota is a drastic improvement simply because of the fact that he has been living in a read offense for a lot of his career.
I think it's my favorite move so far. We're going to talk about another one that I do like in a minute, but I think this is a great fit. They didn't give him a lot of money. The Eagles value this position. He's played in playoff games. He has started a bunch of games in his career. He can win. If you need him for a few game stretch, he can go in there and win with this offense. I think this is like a match made in heaven. And of course, the Chip Kelly circus comes back. The whole prophecy has come true with Chip Kelly. What a time that was, man. I was reflecting back to the 2015 draft and that kind of era of Eagles fandom. That was a wild time.
That was a weird time.
I still remember, like, I was on Twitter all day refreshing, hoping that the Eagles were going to trade for Marcus Mariota. And I didn't give a fuck if they traded Fletcher Cox or anyone. I wanted Mariota that bad. And I think if you take a look at the Eagles' history to the Titans' history over the last few years, I think it worked out in the Eagles' favor that the trade didn't go through. But that was
we'll never know. We'll never know what the Chip Kelly offense would have looked like with Marcus Mariota.
Well, if they cut Deshaun Jackson for gang ties and bad attitude.
I mean, the whole thing was going for disaster, but I would like, in an alternate universe, I would like to see what happened in that year if he had Marcus Mariota.
Well, I like the Mariota sign. I think it's a solid fit. I don't think there's much else to say. Like you kind of nailed it. Can run the same offense. They don't have to scrap some of the playbook. He has issues throwing deep. He was awful throwing the ball deep last year.
Oh, he was terrible.
But AJ Brown and Devonta Smith can fix that for you. You know, you got guys that, and that's stuff that you can kind of, it's not really reliable year to year deep throwing. Like, I think you can kind of have one good year, one bad year. Like, it's not sticky. So I think they'll be.
Like, the Falcons' offense from a personnel and schematic standpoint is just night and day to the Eagles. Yeah. It's a whole, like, you can't even compare it.
Okay, last signing that the Eagles have made, Rashad Penny.
Love it.
I called that one, baby. This is one that I wanted to take a swing on.
One of the things I instantly thought of you.
I was all on board for this one. I knew they were going to be really cheap at running back, and he screamed cheap to me because he was coming off the injury or the leg injury. So I knew they were going to have to sign someone for really cheap. I thought Foreman was going to get too much money, and those guys, and it ended up happening. Foreman kind of got outpaid. David Montgomery got a long-term contract. So this was kind of the 1-year swing that they were looking to take. They called around. A lot of guys wanted multi-year deals, and Rashad Penny was willing to come for like extremely cheap, only $600K guaranteed. He actually has less guaranteed money than Boston Scott. So it's not fully like, I wouldn't put it past Eagles to not have him on the roster in 2023. I'll say that. Like, he's very cuttable in training camp if he's not playing well.
Oh, yeah,
I do think he will be on the roster, though. I do think he will be starting. I think he'll be starting day one. I'm that confident in his playing ability. He's healthy. And my God, did he look ripped on that press conference. That guy's got like absolute missiles for shoulders.
It's not called threaded, Brenden. You can't call it threaded. That's showing veins.
God, some of the comments, like making fun of your calling guy shredded. Like,
okay, give it a break.
I'm sorry, it's not the exact gym term for your language. Holy hell.
The dude looked massive. I mean, he's and then you turn on the tape and you just see him running away from DBs.
Yeah,
like
He's an electric player. He's a fun player, fun guy to root for.
He
First
is
round pick pedigree.
insanely talented. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me? That's what you like you said, like if he stays healthy, and that's the big if.
it's huge.
But but then again, I looked at his injury history after they signed him because I knew that he missed a lot of games. I didn't know exactly what he missed it with.
His Pro Football Reference game page is pretty ugly.
He has, yeah. So there are some soft tissue injuries here and there. He missed a couple of games with some of those. Those weren't really the massive issues. When I see a player who miss a ton of games because of soft tissue injuries like grade 3 hamstring pulls and stuff like that, that scares the shit out of me. But when I see ACL, sure, most players have an ACL tear at some point in their career at this point. It's basically a given that something happened like that. A tibia fracture, like a tibia fracture is like that's not an injury you get because you're injury prone. That's something you get because something extremely fast is coming right at your bone and it breaks.
And if, you know what? I was doing research on this injury. Like he's going to be complete. He's already healthy. It's not.
He's fine. He's
like
when that bone heals, nothing like. Don't worry about it. Exactly. If you get a compound fracture and you don't have a really like a tibia plateau, like so where the tibia bone meets the knee, like with the knee, like if you get a compression fracture of that, that sucks. But you'll see that in the recovery process. Like they won't get back to full strength. He said he's fully back. He's fully ready. He's ready to go. And if there's a guy who's willing to prove that he can stay healthy,
it was a broken fibula. Actually, he broke.
Wasn't it a tibia?
It was.
If it's fibula, don't even worry about it. Like
yeah, it was a fibula. It was the bone. I looked up on like the skeleton because I wanted to see what a fibula was. It's like the curved bone in your leg, right?
It's the bone you don't need.
Yeah. So yeah, like he's
okay. He's good.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
This is an exciting signing. Like I think Eagles fans should be pumped about this one. This is the signing that provides upside to the team. This is an improvement that they can find. Like we're seeing a lot of losses and like how we're going to like fill these losses in. This is like I can clearly see a path where this is better than production that they had last year and a better player than they had last year. Miles Sanders, hats off to you. I still would have taken you in that second round draft pick. I was looking at some of the running backs that were drafted after Miles Sanders in that draft. I think the Eagles picked the right one. You could maybe argue Tony Pollard if you want, but Miles Sanders is a fine Eagle. I think his like inability to catch the ball out of the backfield and be on the field on third downs really affected him over the last couple of years. His vision kind of started to falter. So I'm fine with the Eagles for Eagles not bringing him back and kind of going a different route. I think Rashad Penny behind this offensive line has tremendous upside, and maybe part of the reason he kept getting injured in Seattle so much is because he didn't have good offensive line units. Last year, the Eagles finished 6th in adjusted line yards per run, so they were a top 6, I guess, rushing offense for what you will from the offensive line perspective. I think they could even put them higher than that. Seattle was 30th, so he didn't have a lot of good run blocking going on in Seattle. So this is a cool one. This is my Marcus Mariota is probably my favorite just from the fact that it's a quarterback position. They have stability there, but I'm all on board with the Penny one, and I cannot wait to see him run week 1. I think he's going to be on the roster. I think he will play week 1, but I didn't want to say like he is. It is a cuttable contract if it doesn't work out in training camp, but I don't see that happening, and I'm ready to go. I'm all on board for the Penny leading this running back room.
Yeah, and like worst case scenario, I don't know. I don't even think it's worst case. Like worst case scenario, he's cut in training camp. Best case scenario, he tears the league apart. He either goes, all right, fuck me. Eagles believed in me. I have a career chance here behind these Eagles offensive line. He signs a pretty moderate deal here with the Eagles, or he goes sign somewhere with a big ass contract and the Eagles got a comp pick again.
Yep.
I mean that's basically what kind of signing this is. I mean, let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games starting in 2021, 5 games started in 2022, 11 games, 100 and around 70 carries, 1,100 yards for an average of 6.25 yards per run.
His yards per carry is insane. Like if you look at the analytics, like a carry, like since Rashad Penny's entered the league, I can't remember exactly how many running backs there are that had 300 carries. Rashad Penny's first in yards per carry out of all those. Like he's an analytic darling for running backs yards per carry and those kind of stats.
In 11 games, the man has 1,000 yards. 11 games where he's not even carrying the ball that much. Like, we're talking, let me just put it up here. 10 carries, 16 carries, 11 carries, 17 carries, then 23, 25, 12, 6, 14, 17, 8. This is Miles Sanders numbers, but the difference is this dude is putting up 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
Like,
he's
and,
like
and the best thing about it, I'm gonna put I got a not a mouse, the Rashard Penny video coming up here.
Nice.
Seattle's offense, zone. Who runs zone more than anybody? Philadelphia Eagles.
Jeff Stoutland, baby. Like he's this is gonna be I'm giddy. I can't wait to see him in the Eagles offense. And my DMs are open if you want to apologize for ripping me on my original Rashad Penny video. If you're listening to this, everyone, you can slide in my DMs and apologize because I got a lot of hate for it. I got a lot of
Should we put out a template?
Sorry?
Should we put out a template like the official apologize to Brenden D. Rashad Penny take template?
I think we might need to. I got a lot of hate for it, and you know what? Fuck.
And also, I'll just finish with this. This does not rule out drafting a running back.
No, not even the slightest. I think they made this signing to draft a running back. Like, I don't think they want Rashad Penny and Kenneth Gainwell being the leaders of this backfield. I think they're going to attack one on day 2 and day 3 because it's like, again, it's $600K guaranteed money. Like, it's not a lot of money to give them. So they're going to be flexible here, and I would 100% still add a running back to this room. Like,
I'm just saying, I'm just putting this out here. I'm just thinking out loud here with a couple of pros and cons here. Jahmyr Gibbs at 30. You still have the 5th-year option if you draft them in the first round. It's the bottom of the first round. You're paying as little as possible for a first-round player. While you get the 5th-year option, if they're doing extremely good, you can still franchise tag the player. That's 6 years. That's the lifespan of a running back. Don't rule it out. Jahmyr Gibbs is better than Quez Watkins at receiver. I'm out.
I have not watched much of the running back yet, so I can't really
when you get to Jahmyr Gibbs, hit me up.
I like a Gardner-Johnson. I watched him a lot.
When you get to Jahmyr Gibbs, hit me up.
Okay, I will definitely hit you up. He's I know he's been a draft crush years. You've been on him early, so
no, it's just not. It's not just the running. Like, when you get to some of these games where he's flexed out as a receiver, giddy.
Speaking of wide receivers, let's transition there. Zach Pascal has moved on to the Arizona Cardinals. He got a multi-year deal in Arizona. Pretty surprising there.
Got it, baby.
Yeah. So the Zach Pascal gone. The Eagles need to fill out this wide receiver room. I don't think Britton Covey's going to be wide receiver 4, so they're going to, or wide receiver 3 for that matter, whatever you want to put it. So they're going to need to add to this room here. Looking at some free agents that are still available. There's still some, like, the free agent wide receiver room was kind of a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
a lot of the top guys are gone. Some of them available. Kenny Galladay, Chosen Anderson now, not Robbie. God's sakes. Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark, Randall Cobb, Marvin Jones, Julio Jones, Byron Pringle, Jarvis Landry, Nikhil Harry, Olamide Zaccheaus. Those are some of the names out there. I think they're going to take a flyer on one of these guys, maybe after the draft, not before the draft. Like, if the draft doesn't go their way and they need to fill someone out for training camp, a lot of these guys I'm seeing on this list are probably going to be available after June. So I wouldn't put it past them to add someone, but I don't think it's happening in the next 6 weeks. But I do believe they are going to add to this wide receiver in free agency or a veteran at some point. And like I said, I started watching some from draft picks so far in free agency, or the wide receiver draft picks. Sorry, I am mocking wide receivers to the Eagles like throughout the next 6 weeks. I think they should tap into one in day 2 or day 3. There's some great value on some of these guys. I'm going to hold off some names because we're going to talk a lot about the draft, so we're not going to get specific players here, but I think this is a position to watch for in the draft. What do you think?
Nathaniel Dell.
Tank Dell, yeah. I haven't touched him yet.
No. There's some like the top of the receiver class is super boring. This year, like, it's nothing that what we've seen before, but there's definitely some talent to dive into in the mid rounds, and that's where Eagles are going to be prioritizing in this range. That's
exactly what I'm thinking too. Okay, I think Isaac Sam.
Jason Kelce's back.
Jason Kelce, and that's where we're going here. Jason Kelce is back. You have anything to say?
The most important transaction in.
It was the most important thing the Eagles needed to do. Happy he's back. It's like ecstatic he's back. The Eagles offense doesn't run the same without him, and he's still playing at like an all-pro level. So hats off to Howie Roseman for getting this done. I don't think he needed to convince Jason too much, But it sounded like Kelsey wanted to come back. That video was awesome of them doing shots together and hugging it out. It's cool that they held on to that secret for so long, because that recording was like a week. That was before the Super Bowl, right? So he knew he was coming back before the Super Bowl. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's perfect, and the way these guys are going out there saying all these guys, it's screaming like Fletcher Cox. It's been reported by Schefter that he took a lesser contract to stay with the Eagles. James Bradbury took a lesser contract to stay with the Eagles. And both Brandon Graham and Jason Kelsey very straight up mentioned that they want to play with Jalen Hurts. And that's just what happens when you have a guy like Jalen Hurts putting this whole dynamic together. And going back to the contract that Jalen Hurts is going to get, like, he has all the leverage in the entire world for this contract coming up. This team is being glued together by him.
I have a question for you. When do you think this contract extension is coming?
I think it's gonna be later now. I think we're gonna be after the draft. I think they would have probably I think, given that they went to the Super Bowl, I think Jalen Hurts knows exactly what needs to happen for this team to win, and it starts with free agency and the whole pre-draft process. I think he's gonna say, like, you guys go ahead and you take care of the team. We'll get to all the contract when that stuff kind of matters there. And so after the draft, I think they're gonna ramp up the contract negotiations pretty hard. But for now, I think Jalen Hurts rationalizes enough that he knows he's going to get paid. How Roseman said he's going to get paid. He doesn't worry about it. I could definitely see that both him and Nicole Lynn are saying, like, you take care of the team. We'll get to the contract when there's time for that.
So just rewinding the clock here. So Carson Wentz's 5th-year option was exercised on April 29th, and then they signed him to an extension on June 6th. So just kind of put it past. So yeah, I think June.
Same timetable. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right on everything there. Isaac Seumalo has officially signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Love an Isaac Seumalo, man. Great Eagle. Another kind of nice find for Howie Roseman and Jeff Stellan. I think it was 2016, right? They drafted him. This was Howie Roseman's first year back as a general manager. So that was a great find for him. And after kind of resurrecting himself after being put in the broom closet when Chip Kelly was there. So great players. Steelers got a good one, but he was obviously going to leave.
Got Nate Herbig too. Nate and Icy back together.
I am co-workers with a Steelers fan, so I was giving all the info on Nate Herbig and Isaac Seumalo the other day. So shout out to Daniel Valente from The Score. But anything else, like, on the players? I have kind of a big picture take, but anything else on specific players? I think we got everyone, right?
I think Kaiser White also left.
Kaiser White, yes, that is one we did miss. He's gone to Arizona.
Marcus Epps to Raiders.
Yes, we missed that too. That was my bad.
No, I mean, it's what it is. We knew it. So
okay, big picture. How you feeling about free agency? How it went? How you feeling going to the draft?
I did not think Eagles were going to be able to retain what they have, and I think they prioritized the right guys if they were to keep anybody. And I think after the draft and the couple of signings they're going to be making after that, I think we're going to be looking at the defense and saying these guys are not worse than they were in 2022, which is scary. The fact, because that team was stacked. I think Sean Desai is going to get as talented, if not even more talented, of a defense than what Jonathan Gannon had, and I think that's really great because then we can get to see what kind of defensive coach he is without he didn't have the same guys kind of excuse. It's going to be first year for Sean Desai, so of course there is some getting to know all these guys and putting in your scheme. But, I mean, he's going to have tremendous talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think the offense is going to be upgraded when everything is said and done. I think the backfield has gotten better already. I think the quarterback position has gotten better already, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at the receiver room and that they find some kind of solution there, either with another running back that could play receiver, Jimmy Gibbs, or if they find a wide receiver that they can plug in there.
I think I wouldn't say best case scenario because I would have liked him see him keep Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. But other than him leaving, I think this was the best case scenario for the Eagles so far. Howie Roseman retained all the guys that he wanted. He clearly valued James Bradbury. I think Howie Roseman had this quote from back in the day. I think I saw Zach Berman tweeted out from The Athletic, like, give me a quarterback, give me 2 receivers, give me 2 cornerbacks and some pass rushers, and I can make it work. If you take a look across Eagles roster, that's kind of what Howie Roseman's got there. So he's kind of got everything that he's wanted. They were going to get some bullets fly at them, and I think they did a good job of kind of taking those bullets and managing it. And this team is set up very nicely heading into the draft. I tweeted out today the Eagles have 12 comp picks, or 12 draft picks, sorry, in 2024, including all the comp picks. 12. They have 5 fifth-round picks.
Yeah.
We're not going to go into the 2024 draft with 12 draft picks. That's just not going to happen. They're going to be moving those. I expect a lot of wheeling and dealing over the next couple of days. At the beginning of this episode, I brought up the potential safety options for next year. Bruda Baker, Antoine Winfield Jr. I wouldn't be surprised if they're active, maybe trying to trade for a safety. I wouldn't be surprised if they're active trying to trade for another pass rusher, trade for a wide receiver. They're going to be adding pieces to this roster via trade over the next 6 weeks. I expect maybe even after the draft. So High Rose is going to be active. Like this is just the start. He had to manage his guys. Now he can kind of open up his kind of pathway to the league, look around, see what's out there. And I'm really excited. I think they're in a good spot. The one kind of negative thing I will say is they have to hit this draft. This is like I think we say it every year, they have to hit every draft, but this is a very important one for this franchise because the history of High Rose and draft picks is a lot of them haven't stepped in day one and played.
Yeah.
You need day one starters out of the draft. Yeah. So like the Andre Dillard sitting for a year, the Kobe Dean sitting for a year, Jordan Davis not playing enough, Cam Jurgens sitting for a year. That can't fly this year. You're gonna need dudes day one to step in and play. So
let me know transition into like a kind of a cliffhanger here going towards the next episode. Is there anyone you've watched right now where you go, that could be one of my favorite guys in the draft?
Yes, but I don't think any of them are going to the Eagles. I love Tyree Wilson. We've talked about him. I am like, if they could get Tyree Wilson at 10, oh boy, I love Tyree Wilson. He's so fun. Christian Gonzalez is what he brought up that I really like. I really like Marvin Mims Jr., wide receiver so far. That's the guy that I teased a little bit. But I'm just kind of starting. I did some wide receivers today. I watched some D linemen over the last couple weeks. Like just a little bit. Like you sent me who's the LSU pass rusher? It's passing my
BJ Ojulari.
BJ Ojulari. You like him a lot, right?
Yeah, I like him a lot. Yeah.
So draft prep will be ramped up. I started way too late this year because the Eagles made it far. Like usually, well, not usually, but like after the Eagles lost to the Bucks, I was already watching wide receiver draft tape.
How do we get better?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's been a little bit of a late start. So
yeah.
But we draft content. Me and you are going to be hitting the draft hard over the next 5 weeks. So we'll take a break for the rest of this week. Maybe something big happens, but we'll be back next week and we'll kind of figure out a plan to go forward with some draft content because it's draft season, in my opinion. I think the free agency is kind of over. Dull free agency a little bit from around the league. Not a lot of money thrown out there.
Yeah,
not a lot of big contracts. It was kind of my big takeaway too with NFL free agency. There was
not a great free agency class.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else before we get out of here? 1 hour and 7 minutes in, baby.
Yeah, I mean it's been a lot to cover.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Really appreciate it. Make sure to check out sponsor BetterHelp. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Video content is going to be ramped up over the next 6 weeks, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. It'd be greatly appreciated. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Anything you can do to help the podcast would be greatly appreciated, and we will talk to you later.